Welcome to a different angle in my bedroom. I was usually here, but the side light in the middle of the day is not so great. So we move over here and we see my mostly empty closet. Woohoo! Alright, so this is the wrap-up for June. And you're seeing me in my sweaty glory here because we're doing this in between bouts of finishing up at the other house. I did paint. Oh, and we have a guest. Hey there, bud. Yeah, he's not happy about something. I don't know what. So, let's go with the wrap-up part first. This way. My brain's just lagging a little bit here. So, let's look at our nice little spread for June. We've got June starting out with a buddy read with David Wiley, Richard II. I had some thoughts. I didn't really think it necessary to think them out too much. I read like half of the introduction, which talked about mostly what people didn't like about the play, what they found lacking, and it wasn't really interesting to me. There were some nice turns of phrase, there were some cool emotional parts, but I mean, history play. First history play, we'll see which one I go for next. It's not going to be Richard III. So there's one. The second one is Green Wizardry, Conservation, Solar Power, Organic Gardening, and Other Hands-on Skills from the Appropriate Tech Toolkit by John Michael Greer. This is actually really good. I had a good reading experience because every time I got into it, there would be like a new cool thing to learn about. The basic thing is that appropriate tech was this movement after the oil crisis in America in the early 70s where people were like, oh, hey, maybe we shouldn't depend for all these things that we know how to do on oil instead. Maybe we should keep technology for that other way of life or develop new technologies that aren't dependent on oil. And so a lot of cool things, kind of like the philosophy of a passive solar house where you design the house so that it works for you for heat and cooling rather than arguing with nature and the laws of physics. Imagine that. So I really liked Green Wizardry. Next we have Black God's Drums, Impulse Purchase. It was my first P. Jelly Clark. Ooh, let's do a TikTok transition. Just kidding. A very small book, very short story, very fun. Adventure, steampunk, pirates, a little slang of New Orleans, a little history of Reconstruction, and magic. So it was fun. It wasn't so terribly groundbreaking, but diverse magic system. So they were using the roots of West African magic, Caribbean magic, New Orleans folklore, and so that was a cool part. Next we have what I did for Buzzword-a-thon, the ladies of Missalonghi. My first, Colleen McCullough. There's another transition that I'm not going to do. And this was cute. Let's see. Oh yes, this was the one about a bunch of spinsters living together in an unjust town where the men all have the right of inheritance and are just shutting out all the unmarried women, and there's lots of unmarried women because this family that started the town always had daughters and didn't leave them land. Anyway, it's very interesting. There's one sort of youngest member of this household who goes out and finds herself and is kind of like an Anne of Green Gables character and, just sort of turns the whole town upside down. Kind of like Anne of Green Gables. So this is in Australia, though, which I believe is where Colleen McCullough writes from, Thornbirds, etc. So this is very good, and I'm glad I finally read it. But yeah, now I can unhaul it. So that was number 4. Number 5, I have Unlearn, Rewild. This is another sort of green learning one by Miles Olsun. This one took a while because the beginning of it is very woo-woo, and I am pretty woo-woo, so this was, I don't know, kind of like when you go to a summer camp and they try to hype you up about something and they try to sort of get into that enthusiasm and like us-them talk, and if you're not in that frame of mind, it just comes across as like, oh my god, like a Daria voice. And so I had a hard time getting into it, but then once I got, I don't know, like a third of the way through it, I was like, okay, I can take what I want from this, and it had some interesting things to say. Because this guy is living in BC and basically like living off the land or being in a cooperative or Anyway, doing all these things, I think he ends it with, like, how to shit in the woods, and anyway, the ending is very, like, practical tips, but most of the book is, like, how we're dependent on, not social media, but how not just technology and oil, like the other book, but also our expectations and our sort of settings for life are put on something that is not sustainable, and we have to sort of like untrain ourselves. And so you can take what you want from that one. So it's 5 so far. The next one is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This one was a new book that I bought. Was it a new book? Yeah, I think it was a new book. I'm not sure why. I must have been in a book buying daze. But anyway, I nominated this for the Patreon book club that I run over at Taste Life, T-Weiss, and we had a good time with it. It was a good break from like the super heavy emotional cultural baggage trauma reads that we had the first 2 times, and so this was like more of a questioning universal experience, privilege, time travel, physics, what's it called? Superposition? Stuff that's kind of like fun to think about. And I was in the room with 2 scientists, so I got great feedback on like what's real and what's not so real in terms of the scientist portrayal. So that was fun. But yeah, basically I would call this a very exciting page turner and thriller and enjoyable, but some of the characters were not fleshed out too much, and yeah, the woman wasn't really a 3-dimensional character, in my opinion, in any of the worlds. So there we go. That was 6. We have 7. Oh, 7 was an ebook, so I'll put that up here. Lord Lucifer's Disciple. I just went for a romance. I went to the conference the last week of June, and I think that's where I saw the author, which I did not note, but it'll be on the cover. And I was tootling around her website and read the sample, and I was like, oh, this looks like a good one. So I read it, and it was cute. It was what I wanted. Took me a day, and put me in a good mood. So that's what romance does for you. There you go. Number 7, we have the book that is LGBTQ for Pride Month, A Raven Sings, by M.W. Horses. It's book 1 of a series, a paranormal, lesbian, vampire hunting / vampire adjacent. No, some vampires are good, some are bad. Shifters are good, some are bad. Like, there's all sorts of interesting things. She's created her own universe. What's great about this book is that I got it at another read-through when she had her launch for, I think, the 3rd book, and so I started with the first one. It's a bit big, so I was wanting to ease myself in. And like I said, it was a good story, a fun world-building exercise to learn about, and it's set in the Northwest, and so that was also kind of cool. Local author, local setting. But the writing wasn't really my style. It was over-explanatory, and I think that might be because it's the first book. She's learning, like, show don't tell still, and so there's a lot of spelling things out in dialogue and explaining exactly what's happening in the text, and so I was like, I'd rather skip over that stuff and make it more lively. So yeah, interesting series, paranormal, LGBTQ, and reclaiming magic. So if you're in the mood for that, maybe you pick this up instead of a romance like I did. All right, then we have another book I don't have in my hand, which is Wild Woman in the Blues. This one took a little longer because it's an audiobook, and I've been working and not able to listen to audiobooks. So this was by Denny Bryce, who I also saw at the conference, who gave some great talks and conversations. This was really great. Let's see. This is in Chicago. This was taking us to the Chicago of the 1920s, and basically setting the scene with lots of great slang, lots of costume details, lots of elements that were going on in that particular time. There was like a side plot that was based with Al Capone, or like based on the actions of Al Capone, And so there's a lot of fun stuff that was for the historical nerd in me. But then there's also a great story about sort of a second chance love. So it was like a great romance element, as well as sort of diving behind the scenes of what life was like for Black Americans in this time period. A little bit of the Great Migration, because you had someone coming from Louisiana, I believe, to Chicago, and sort of like the family background and how that interacted. So I just thought she just did an amazing job at putting all this in one story and making it flow. Oh, right. It's actually a framed story. There's dual narratives, and I was okay with this because I was mostly swept up with the 1920s story, but there was also a 2015 story with a guy narrator who is studying this period and wanting to put this woman's work in his dissertation. And there's sort of a strange standoff going on about what information she's letting out. And so there's that. And it's not 50-50. It's definitely more like 30-70. So I actually liked that. I was okay with the fact that the lesser interesting, I want to say, timeline had less space, but it also gave you some great like cliffhanger moments to pop back and forth. So well done, Denny Bryce. Then I've got 3 books that I didn't finish: Food of a Younger Land, The Other Black Girl, and 5 Points. So you'll hear about those in July. Oh wait, it's time for the July TBR. Look at that. All right, turning it around, going to my other place here. July. We got lots of stuff for July here. Okay, so buddy reads. Basically all I have is buddy reads and a readathon. So first off, and I'm starting this now a couple days late, but what's interesting for my buddy reads is that I have 2 buddy readers who are much more regimented than I have been with my buddy reads in the past, so we'll see how that goes. I'm reading The Edwardians with Courtney Ferreter. Ooh, and it's downstairs. I'll talk about it later. Essex Serpent with Danny Spinelli and several others, and so I'll list them down below. We're talking on Voxer. Minimum Wage Magic with John of Hey Y'all Listen Up, and this is sort of like a practice round. We're just seeing how it goes. And Half God of Rainfall with Sandy Golston, BookTube TV, which is also down. No. That one's here. There we go. Half God of Rainfall, Inwa Elums. He's a poet writing epic poetry about mythology based in Nigeria about someone who plays basketball. So this is when I said, hey Sandy, this is like halfway between you and me. Maybe let's buddy read this one. I have no idea what to expect. I read like the first couple pages and I was like, huh. It's definitely something you get into a rhythm of. So there's that. Let's see. There's the Essex Serpent, which is an amazing cover. Oh, in case I have time, which I probably won't, but this has been on my shelf for years. And Buzzwordathon is something with last in the title for July, so The Last American Man. It's sort of a strange setup, I'm not sure, but it's one of Elizabeth Gilbert's earlier books when she wasn't super famous, and it's following a guy around who basically represents the old way of life, but he's living now, like in the 80s and 90s as this person. So I don't really know where this ends up or what story it tells, but it's sort of a biography nonfiction. And yeah, that's my shelf. What do we have in store for July? Oh, the readathon. So in among those books, I'm supposed to choose like 5 for the prompts for Broadway Babyathon. I mean, there's Broadway and there's tarot, and so I had to go with Broadway. I can only try for one. And so I will direct you to the prompts for the Broadway Babyathon, hosted by 3 ladies. The one who I know the most is Brittany of Literarily Smitten. And I've already done one bonus, which was to have a musical theme to post on social media. And my Productivity Sprint live stream yesterday was musical trivia focused, so that was super fun. I was surprised at how much of my audience knew all the musicals, except for the last 2. The last 2 turned out to be stumper questions. The last 2 stumped the people that had just sailed on through all the rest, so many thanks to the people who showed up and dazzled me with their brilliance. That was cool. So, buddy read galore. Broadway Babyathon readathon, perhaps. And what else have we got? Some tags, some talks. I'm hoping to have an AuthorTube panel on Sunday the 11th on comps. If anyone knows what those are, you know what's coming. If not, you'll find out then. Sort of a peek behind the scenes for authors. More tags, mid-year freakout, Patreon bookish chat with mystery guest, more tags, and then a book review. All right, well, this is my July. I'll be continuing here in San Luis Obispo for July, and it's perfectly lovely. It says like 75 degrees, but it doesn't feel like 75 in the sun. It feels like 90, so I'll be staying in the shade, and you should too. Take care of yourself. Whew, here we go. Happy No Fireworks 4th of July. And talk to you guys soon. Interesting name. I'm sure it's a pseudonym. Harlem? No, not Harlem. Oh, yeah, Jane Austen. I didn't mention Jane Austen in July.